Well, hello everybody. Hope everybody is well today. I do have a few new subscribers to my channel, so I wanted to go ahead and just give you a little background on me, where I came from, and all of that. So, music has been in my life from day one. Um, I just I came out singing, literally. My dad was very musical. He had a fantastic voice, fantastic singing voice. My mother always played the piano and they would sing Eddie Fisher. If you remember Eddie Fisher, oh my God, my dad idolized that man. He absolutely loved him. So my music started at a very young age, and we lived in New York suburbs, Westchester County. And, back in the 60s, Broadway shows were, I don't need these, Broadway shows were so cheap to go to. So, like every weekend, we drive to New York, and I saw all the shows from way back when. Cabaret, George M. Cohan, Angela Lansbury did one. I can't remember, but I saw so many shows. Fiddler on the Roof, you name them, everything that was on, the strip back then, all the shows that were there in the 60s. We saw all of them. My dad has his my dad had his own roofing company, and he did very, very well. He started out small, but he eventually became the one of the best roofers in Westchester County. And so I was very privileged growing up, material wise. You know, I'd get dresses, I'd get records. I got record player for my Christmas birthday, along with the regular Christmas presents. And yeah, I was very privileged. And my dad and mom, they just loved to travel. And then first time we went to Puerto Rico, we absolutely loved it. And we would see Engelbert Humperdinck almost every single night. He was big in Puerto Rico back then in the 70s. So we would go to Puerto Rico several times a year, and then we started going to Vegas, which was fun. We used to stay at Caesar's Palace, and the hot sun out there, it was hot, but I enjoyed it. I was in the pool a lot, and we lived the life, when I was growing up. So yeah, and in Vegas we saw lots of people too. Paul Anka. Who else was in Vegas? Of course, Wayne Newton was always there, and then we saw Elvis during the last of his tour. It was a year to the day that we saw him, and he died a year later. So Vegas was always fun, and I always had the most beautiful clothes, long dresses. Ugh, it was just amazing. So that's kind of my background, where I'm just music all the time. And then when I got old enough, I was in the choir at Byram Hills High School in Ormont, New York, and I made it to the all state choir actually. And I was in a recording of the craziest song I've ever heard. It was like an animal song, and I was the sopranos were the owls, so we're always singing who. It was so bizarre. But it was an honor to get to the all state choir, that's for sure. And I did take voice lessons as a teenager. My music director at school taught us a lot about singing. So you know, that was before the professional singing, but he helped me develop my voice. Back then I didn't have any volume to my voice. I may still not have any volume because I'm always using a microphone now, but I wanted so badly to be in one of his plays, and he said, "Darling, you have a beautiful voice, but I don't have the time to teach you to project your voice." So it was sad, but so I just stuck to, singing to the radio. When my mother was out of the house, I'd be up in my room and I'd be singing along with the radio, the records that I had. I had a big record collection, and I grew up with the Osmonds. They were my favorite group. So, yeah, so that was kind of my background, child wise. I was always singing constantly, and my dad was supportive of it. I would go driving in the truck with him, and I'd just sing to him, it was just so much fun. So then in my later years, um, I guess my early 20s, I had always done country, okay? And Crystal Gale really was the person who I I kind of I kind of call her my mentor, even though it wasn't in person, because I learned my style from her and her love ballads, which is why I do a lot of ballads, because to me, those are the best songs, for my voice, because I do put a lot of passion into my singing, but especially in the ballads. So, yeah. And then I met my husband Dave in 1982 on Friday the 13th. So anytime Friday the 13th comes around, I kind of celebrate because it's an unusual day to meet somebody and to stay with them for 30 years, right? So we moved around, and one year we landed in Tucson. Okay. We had moved from New York to Florida. Florida was too rainy, and the job opportunities were terrible in Tampa at the time. So he got an annual check from his father's estate, and we moved to Tucson. When we got to Tucson, he actually tried to start a band for me because he knew how much I loved to sing. He encouraged me all the time, and it didn't pan out, but just to show what kind of man he was, he really loved me and he really wanted to support, my passion. So then from there, we went to Dallas, Texas because his brother was ill. And that's kind of where the ball started rolling with me professionally singing. There was a superstore called Incredible Universe, and they had all kind of innovative technology things. And it was an interesting setup because they had a round stage in the middle of the store. And then there was somebody who sat in a deck, kind of like what you call it, music console type thing. And he would act like a DJ. And I got hired to sing there. I went in and I did an audition. And that was my first professional job. So I sang there for about a year, I want to say, until the next thing that happened was Charlie Daniels used to have a talent roundup show on TNN, Nashville Network. I sent in a tape of me singing. Back then, we were using cassette tapes. And I got a letter back from them saying that we'd love to have you on our show. Come on down for an audition and we'll go from there. So we went down to Nashville. I auditioned and they told me that I was wonderful, that I would be on the next season. And lo and behold, several months later, the Nashville Network canceled the show. Talk about a letdown. They canceled the show out from under me, but the fact that they even called me to audition, I mean, that was an honor to me. Those are people in Nashville who told me I had a good voice. So after that, we went back to Dallas, and then my husband got back pay for Social Security disability because he had hurt his back really bad. So we used that money and we moved to Hermitage, which is right outside of Nashville. It's only about 10-minute drive from downtown Nashville in Hermitage. So yep, we moved up there. I've always been a medical secretary or transcriptionist. That's what I did during the day. And then a couple of times I would go like into a bar and they'd let me sing a song, you know. And then I did a couple of weddings that I got paid for. And yeah, it just goes on from there. I did a gig at the senior center in Murfreesboro when I lived there. So yeah, I've been singing my entire life, and I enjoy it so much. I really, really love it. So we did that in Tucson, not in Tucson, in Hermitage when we went to Tennessee. And then I had already been writing a little um, reviews of CDs back in Dallas. Okay, now, but back in Dallas, those were dial up days, right? And they had these things called the bulletin boards. And that's where I would go on and do reviews of CDs. And then when we moved to Nashville, we met a publisher. Well, not a publisher, he was a talent agent. And he showed us how to, how to get in, the business and how to get rolling. And as a result, we had an online country music magazine. We were the very first, no matter what anybody says. When we started our country music webzine, there wasn't anybody else doing that. And that was back in, we moved there in 96. So, yeah, 96, 97, 98, 99. We had our magazine for 4 years. And during that time, we did a lot of interviews with new and upcoming artists, mostly because those are the ones that were out there wanting to get interviewed and to get um, recognized. But the magazine was interesting. We called it Country Views because, and it had a positive theme, all right? Because at the time, there were so many journalists that absolutely bashed every single country artist out there. If they wrote a review, it was always negative, derogatory. I don't know what they get out of that, and we were just fed up. So we decided to make a positive webzine. All right. I would do CD reviews, we would do interviews. It was just so much fun, and we really, really enjoyed it. And that's where I met a lot of people. I had so many pictures of me and celebrities on the wall, and that's another long story. But they were all lost, and all the cartridges were lost too because I left them behind after my husband passed away in Sevierville. I was a wreck, you know, and I was told to get out because I couldn't pay the rent. Little did I know I could have waited. I didn't have to leave right then and there, but I was distraught and grieving, and I didn't know. So, I just took what I could in my car and I went back to Murfreesboro. But anyhow, I lost my train of thought. So, anyway, yeah, the Country Music Magazine was great. Met pretty much everybody in the industry back then because we would cover charity shows a lot, and then we would cover individual, artists like Jody Messina, Martina McBride. Those are the two that we saw multiple times. And that's why I have an autographed picture of Martina because I had seen her the previous year at the country radio seminar. And she was kind enough to take a picture, let me take a picture of her. And then the following year, when I saw her at a charity event, I showed her the picture and I asked her if she could sign it. And she said, "Oh, yeah, I remember you." I thought that was so amazing that she remembered me out of all these hundreds of people that she's all the time. So, yeah, so Martina and Jody, we were kind of in with because we saw them so many times in concert. But then again, we just saw, a bunch of people's shows to cover, like Garth Brooks, Martina, of course. So many of the stars back then in the 90s that really aren't around anymore, or they are touring, but they're not really mainstream media anymore. It's so hard for me to throw names out because it's been so long. Brian White, Ty Herndon, Pam Tillis, Trisha Yearwood, Garth. I was I was able to shake his hand. And I'm telling you, that man has charisma. It was just, it was so strange. It was like I got this surge inside of me just from his presence, you know, very charismatic man. And yeah, so we had a lot of fun with that magazine. And then a very sad occasion in our life. We met a young woman who did not want her baby, and we agreed to raise her child. 10 months into it, we already had the baby for 10 freaking months, almost 11. She decided that she wanted her baby now, and she literally kidnapped her from our house. That's what we get for being kind and letting her see her baby and taking her out of the house, which was not my idea. It was my husband's idea. So we lost her after 10 months and traumatized. Oh my gosh. I still have her pictures everywhere. I don't care what anybody says. She was my baby for 11 months, right? So she doesn't even know about us. Her parents are so paranoid that they've threatened me not to talk about her. And I mean, she's going to be what, 27 this year? And they still don't want me talking about her? I just think that's nuts. What does it matter? Nobody really watches my channel. Obviously, they're spying on me to see what I'm saying. But for crying out loud, she's an adult now. And I even know where she is simply because I saw an obituary for her grandmother. But I'm not going to contact her. It's she had enough trouble in her life, with other things. So once she was gone, we kind of just stopped the webzine because Gaylord had come along and they took over the internet, and our little magazine just didn't matter anymore. So yeah, so I've just been singing my entire life. I've taken lessons and I've had a couple of professional jobs. So that is me in a nutshell. My husband died 13 years ago this year. Uh, Diabetes, hypertension, there was so much wrong. And took me a long time to, you know, get used to it. The grieving never stops. I mean, there are times when I'll be watching something sad on TikTok and I'll just bawl my eyes out. And I think that's why when Eric Dane died last week, he used to be on Grey's Anatomy, Dr. Mark Sloan. I just burst down and sobbed, and I don't know. You feel close to people when you watch them on their TV shows. You know what I mean? Because they become a staple in your life, and I love that show. I loved his character, and it just broke my heart that he got ALS, and he didn't even last a year, almost a year, but not quite. Oh, so I'm an emotional mess anytime, I see that. So now you see my little corner here. It's all hyped up with Keith Urban on the top. He has been my favorite since 2004. Seen him 11 times in concert, every single tour. And then on the bottom is Louis Capaldi. He's actually my new favorite. Okay. Keith is kind of taken aback. Taken to the back when Louis Capaldi is to the front. I am just in love with this kid. And he is a kid. I'm 60. How old am I? 68. And he's not even 30 yet. I mean, I'm old enough to be his grandma. But I just think he's funny as hell. He cusses a lot. He's from Scotland, has a fantastic voice. And you've heard his song. It was on the radio, Someone You Loved. I need somebody to live, somebody to do. Someone you loved. My mind is blank, but he's my new favorite. I'm going to see him in April in Austin. Boston. Alrighty, guys, I've been talking over 20 minutes. I hope everybody's well. That's me in a nutshell. music community is right now. There are only certain people I will sing with, or on their sing with on their channels, which is Shooting Star MS, Shimmer Soul, Mr. B. He just got back from having a health crisis, but he actually came on tonight and I sang with him. Those are the only three now that I will sing with, just simply because there's been so much drama going on, and that's it. That's what I do. Everybody take care. I'll see you next time.